A lot of people are miserable at their jobs because they don't find fulfillment, love, or joy in it.
Yeah.
However, would you rather be miserable at a job or be homeless? And that's what most people do nowadays. They just live in this state of victimhood and they never try to change it. I was bullied my whole life, so I was always struggling with anxiety and depression. I was diagnosed with depression, anxiety, panic disorder.
Wow.
I had panic attacks to the point where my chest would hurt and I couldn't breathe. I had a lot of suicidal ideation. I had a lot of self-harm. And my therapist wanted me to go on meds too, and I always refused. I had 10 years experience as a traditional therapist, and I worked in inpatient, outpatient, hospitals, clinics, homeless shelters, private practice, applied behavioral analysis, and I was a traveling home therapist. Now I have 5 years as a therapist / coach. Collectively, I have 15. I think diagnoses are the biggest bullshit lie that's been pushed on people. You get these idiots nowadays that come out of a therapist's office excited that they have a diagnosis. I think depression overall is bullshit. I think the anxiety thing is bullshit. How is it that today you have more people in therapy, more people on medication, and more people will still say that they're struggling worse than when they started? When people take a medication to get out of depression, I think that's absurd.
Yeah.
Because you're not getting out of depression. You're numbing your emotions. Feelings aren't facts, but they're indicators. And then the question is, what do they indicate? And why do they indicate it? You're going to feel anxiety when you go out. Do it anyway. I was stepping into rooms with entrepreneurs and business owners. I joined networking groups and I wound up getting my first ever executive coaching client.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, bro.
I'm fired up, guys, and appreciate you having me on. We're definitely going to chop it up.
Yeah, man, I'm doing great. And welcome back to the Growth Street Podcast.
I think that a lot of the times when people struggle with fulfillment, even if it's at a job, it's usually because of the way we frame it. Like some people might say, oh, being a janitor is not very fulfilling. Why? Where are you a janitor? How many people do you help? How many people have a clean space to go to where it's not infested with cockroaches or they hate their home, right?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. And there's not one thing that we do in this world that actually doesn't help other people. It's just maybe we're too in love with how we think we're supposed to help. Like, oh, I don't get fulfillment being a CPA. Why not? You help people with their finances. That's important. You know how many people struggle financially because of the fact that they don't have good financial intelligence? But what that does is that gives you a role or position that matters, but maybe you don't see it that way because we're like, oh, well, if I really want to help people, I should be a therapist, or I should go do charity, or I should be a firefighter.
Yeah.
And it's not true, actually. You can create meaning in anything you want to actually serve and support others.
Yeah, do you think that is something that should be done? Because I'm fascinated by the idea of, I think, even though you say that, there are still objectively more helpful ways to help people than other things. For example, like what I was thinking with my job was, my role was to help elevate other businesses by providing them with LinkedIn solutions. And in my mind, I'm like, that for the pipeline to actually directly help a person is so deep where that fulfillment for me wasn't there. And I would look for it, I think. I'd be like, okay, so who from the company that I'm selling this thing to would actually benefit from the thing that they're implementing? And I was like, it's so far down the line where I feel like it wasn't helpful. But it's a weird concept because I feel like that's a lot of where like money is. And like these B2B and these things like that. So I'm fascinated. Like, how do you feel like people can? Do you feel how? It's like, yeah. I'm curious what you think on this whole helpful concept. Like how? Where does that?
Yeah.
What do you think about it?
I would argue what you do is extremely important. Or what you did was extremely important because businesses are the backbone of society. If you don't have a business, you don't have employees. If you don't have employees, people don't have jobs. If they don't have jobs, they can't take care of their families. So why I like coaching entrepreneurs, executives, and organizations is because I don't need to work with hundreds of people to impact hundreds of lives. I can actually work with one person who's a key decision maker to impact hundreds, if not thousands of lives. So if I work with the CEO implements policies or changes that help the C-suite, which is now maybe a team of, I don't know, it depends on the organization.
5, 10,
right?
whatever it is.
5, 10, maybe even 40. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But that 5, 10, how many people are under them? Because then those are the people that have to report up to the C-suite. So let's just say that's another 20, 30, 40. And then you have maybe another smaller ring under that of 50 to 100.
Yeah.
So now you have, collectively close to 160 people. How many of those people have families? Yeah. Now you have 160 times, let's just say the average family is 3 or 4 people. Now you're up to almost 600 people.
Yeah.
Then that business also provides a service or a product. So if their service and product gets better because they are now working on their quality because of procedural or whatever changes in an organization, now you're maybe impacting a few thousand other people. Now, just by working with a small select group of people, you've just enhanced the lives of arguably a few thousand. And
from one conversation.
from one conversation, one change, one thing, or hey, if we bring in more money to that business, could they hire more? In fact, they'll have to, because more money means they'll probably expand, because business is always about expansion and growth, right? So as soon as you expand and grow, you bring on more people, you enrich more lives. And of course, listen, this is more of a picture perfect conversation, because the nuance is a lot of people are miserable at their jobs because they don't find fulfillment, love, or joy in it.
Yeah.
However, would you rather be miserable at a job or be homeless? And most people are going to say they'd rather be miserable at a job.
Yeah.
And so no matter what, I would say that every job to some degree has a form of benefit. But overall, when people are saying, oh, like corporations don't help, I would say that's probably bullshit.
Yeah. No, I think corporations definitely do help. I think it's just a weird concept now of, I think it's one of those first world problems where now we have so many things already given to us. It's almost like what can I find an imperfection in to make it kind of focusing on some things. So that's how I even think of what I'm saying about this whole first world problems versus third world problems.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of aligns into exactly what you do, because a lot of things we see nowadays about mental health, it's a really big conversation, especially, when it comes to young people and their personal development, especially even professional development, when they want to get to in their life professionally, their careers as an entrepreneur, a student, or even, a corporate worker. And I think of this whole concept of, if you were in some third world country, your mental health doesn't matter because you have to make that $5 to feed your family every single day. So you're not even focused on how you feel, you're focused on what you're doing. So I'm curious for you what your thought process now is on like today's state of mental health and first world problems and like looking at things. And I'm curious what you think about this kind of thing.
It's funny, that example that you used actually can sum up a lot of the first world problems perfectly.
Yeah.
The people with the third world problems are struggling, justifiably so, in survival state. Because you have two states. You have the survival state and you have the executive state. Survival state is exactly as it sounds. You're in fight, flight, or freeze always. So you have tunnel vision on. You're focused on like, what's best for me? What can I get right now? How do I get this? How do I just live? How do I take care of me?
Yeah.
The first world country, we are in survival state. Similarly, but for different reasons.
Okay.
So a lot of these people, for instance, will be in survival state because of their emotions. I hate my job. I don't want to go to work. And now they're having anxiety and panic attacks. Do you know when the most heart attacks occur in the U.S.?
I'm guessing 50.
No. Like, is there a day in the week that they occur?
Oh, it's got to be like Monday morning or Sunday night.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's actually, the research shows most heart attacks occur Monday mornings.
Yeah.
Or
that's wild.
Sunday night.
Yeah.
And it's because people are having anxiety, and then that anxiety or panic or whatever sets in, and now it really turns into something, and now they have an actual detrimental problem. And so why is that though?
Yeah.
Because we're in this survival state, we're fearing for our lives, when the brain is interesting because it's very primitive. We used to be in survival state because we would have to fend ourselves against saber-tooth tigers. We'd have to fight those things with arguably oversized toothpicks, right?
Yeah.
Now you're in survival state because you feel like you don't make enough money, because you hate your boss, because you deem yourself as somebody who has social anxiety and you're afraid of talking to people and saying hi. It's all sorts of, in my opinion, ridiculous reasons to be in survival state. And then to get an executive state is very, very different, because now you go from tunnel vision to wide scope vision. Okay. Now you go from fear and anxiety to creativity and to some form ease and flow.
Yeah.
And those two states are different. But what's really different about them is one of them most people are living in a lot of the time. The other one most people never even know how to get to. And if you understand what we're talking about, for the listeners at least, right? It's understanding that you can create survival state. And you create it because of your perceptions and your beliefs on life. Most people aren't actually struggling with crap. They're perceptively struggling with crap because they've made it so. Yeah. And now they're perpetuating it day in and day out.
Yeah, and I think that makes me think of something personal. When I think of a lot of my friends and people that I know in my life, it's fascinating you mentioned this whole idea of mental health and like giving it to yourself and not being able to kind of figure out the way through it. Because I feel like the only way to really solve problems and like make a genuine difference is to go through things. But I feel like now, especially with this conversation, there's a lot of going around things. So for example, when I hear, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this about, like, for example, the whole mental health and medications and stuff now, right? Like, When I was younger, I never, maybe because I was young, I don't never paid attention to these things, but like depression, right, and anxiety. I was never
Yeah.
thinking about, thoughts on, medicating for that, or even like, for certain like transgender, like the whole, being able to change genders and things like that. I know there's I forget what the word for it is, like the mental health version of it. But now, when I was younger, it was like you're a tomboy. But now it's a lot of medical procedures that are done to change these things. I'm not saying anything are right or wrong, but I feel like so much has changed in this conversation in the past 15 or so years.
Right.
What do you think about it?
Well, as far as the transgender thing, I think what you might be referring to is they used to have a term in
Tomboys.
in the DS. No.
Oh,
Tomboys were just girls that were guyish.
Yeah, okay.
And and here's the funny thing: most of them were still straight.
Yeah,
they would just dress baggy clothes.
Yeah.
But I tell you, you hang out with that girl one on one, she's cuddly. Yeah. She's a woman. When you had we as therapists, we have a diagnostic handbook called the DSM.
Okay.
So the old DSM used to have this thing called gender dysmorphia, which is when you
That's
thought
what I'm talking about, yeah.
you were the other gender.
Yeah.
And that was a mental disorder. That was you don't feel right in your body. You know what's really interesting? It's always obviously a touchy subject.
Yeah.
But it really gets me, even in my mind, curious, because there's one of the most powerful forms of therapeutic practices really came under Ericksonian theory. And a lot of what they would talk about in Ericksonian theory was the acceptance of yourself in the wholeness, through the flaws, through the positives, through just everything that you were. And not only acceptance, but understanding like how you can utilize it and how it could be different or better for you. And I found that when you look at, like, for instance, the transgender world, there's a lot of people in there struggling with mental health.
Yeah.
And my thought is perhaps, and I haven't had an in-depth enough conversation with some of these people to really understand, like, this is just my curiosity.
Of course.
Is that, what if one of the biggest issues is because at the core of it, it is the deepest unwillingness to accept who you are. Like, if you're born a man and you're no longer a man, or you don't want to be a man, or you don't deem yourself as a man, does that ever actually change? You could physically change, you could hormonally change, but will that ever fully change is the question. And then if you can't get to the core of accepting the deepest part of you, can you ever find true happiness and joy in life? And I would love to have that conversation. Like, this isn't me trying to be judgmental or say,
definitely, yeah.
It's just really
trying to
like,
understand.
Yeah.
Especially from where you're from too. Like, do you feel like that's a different thing? Like, now I kind of want to go into like depression and anxiety. Do you feel like they're very separate things about, okay, one, obviously you can't just self-medicate and be done with one of those things, but now with depression and anxiety, a lot of it now is, I'm curious because you're licensed in this line of work, and I only have my perceptions of what I've seen. But for example, when it comes to what Growth Street is doing, I've seen certain things like this really derail people's professional journeys. Like, people who are super like talented and had a lot going for them, maybe make a wrong step or two in their development and their actions about their mental health or physical health, and it really derails their future, whether it's drugs, whether it's medication, whether it's, certain ways they approach these things. What is your kind of stance on how the world now is with things like depression, anxiety, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think most of it's bullshit. I think depression overall is bullshit. I think the anxiety thing is bullshit. I mean, how is it that today you have more people in therapy, more people on medication, and more people will still say that they are struggling worse than when they started?
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense to me, right? If you had any other business model in this world, I'm not even going to say it like in an industry, in the whole world, and something wasn't working, it would not continue to
fail.
Well, no, it wouldn't continue to be done.
Yeah.
If it wasn't working, it would be what? It would be non-existent.
Yes.
You would shut it down. If you had a company and you were, I don't know, we could use something stupid and arbitrary, and you were selling water bottles.
Yeah.
And nobody liked your water bottles, you wouldn't say, this is a great water bottle, let's just keep throwing money at it.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
It's not working.
It's not working. But in therapy, it's like, okay, here's the idea. You're going to come in for 20 years. You're going to take this medication. You're going to come in for 20 years every week, by the way. And you're going to take this medication every week. And that's it. You don't ever really get better. You just learn how to manage better. And you'll still have your problems. They don't go away. But if you do this every day until the day you die, it won't be as bad as it was.
That's, yeah. What? Yeah, that just sounds like it's, you wouldn't be coming back if it was working.
Eventually.
Yeah.
right? And I mean, listen, here's the thing. I think there's always something to work on. So I feel like even the field of personal development to some degree is almost a scam because it is true that there's always something you can improve upon.
Yeah, of course.
But I would also argue that there are points where you probably should not need somebody to continue help guiding you. Like I have a client right now who's we're getting ready to terminate.
Okay.
He's been with me. He's actually been with me for a while. It's been about 2 years.
Oh, wow, nice.
But literally, we get on calls now, and I'm like, "What are we talking about?" He's like, "I got nothing." And he'll tell me, here's actually something funny. We just had a call, and he said, "You know what? Actually, I realized there was some trauma that came up for me now that I started dating again because of this situation that happened in the past, and now obviously something kicked it up." And he's like, "But here's what I'm doing to resolve it." I'm like, "That's crazy because I didn't even give you that advice.
Yeah.
But you knew to do that now
Yeah.
because you have the tools, you have the skills, and you're ready." I was like, "Dude, I think we're almost done." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "You know what? Let's do like we'll do once a month calls for maybe the next 2 or 3 months. And if we have nothing else to talk about, I'll see you."
Let's go. That's awesome.
And I'm like, "Dude, that's great."
Yeah.
And it's bittersweet, but it's
Obviously,
beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's bittersweet because here's the thing. I really do invest in people.
Yeah.
And you should, right? Because how do you help people if you're not invested in them? And so I told him, I said, "This has been so rewarding to work with you, to see you grow over these past 2, almost 3 years now."
Yeah.
And it's a joyous moment. It's a joyous and a sad moment. It's joyous because I know you got exactly what you came here for, but it's a sad moment because we're not going to do
It's
this
done
anymore.
Yeah. It's done.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's a great thing. But I never encouraged him to go on medications. I refuse to diagnose him. I think diagnoses are the biggest bullshit lie that's been pushed on people.
Tell me, why?
Yeah, I want people to ditch their diagnoses. So when I was younger, I was diagnosed with depression, anxiety, panic disorder.
Wow.
I had panic attacks to the point where my chest would hurt and I couldn't breathe, hyperventilating. I had a lot of suicidal ideation. I had a lot of self-harm. And my therapist wanted me to go on meds too. And I always refused. And the reason is I never thought that I needed meds. I thought that a lot of the problems I was dealing with were maybe more so situational. And here's the funny part.
Yeah.
They were extended. I was bullied my whole life. So I was always struggling with anxiety and depression. And it didn't even stop once I stopped getting bullied. But the problem was that I was perpetuating victimhood. And that's what most people do nowadays. They just live in this state of victimhood and they never try to change it. And why I think it's so important to ditch the diagnosis is because as I got older, what I learned is that most changes have to come from your identity. It's not just about how you think about life or how you reason with life. It's more about who you believe yourself to be in that life. You get these idiots nowadays. I'm going to use that term very specifically.
Yeah.
You get these idiots nowadays that come out of a therapist's office excited that they have a diagnosis.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
What is that about?
Yeah. And I just saw it happen to me, like not like directly to me, but someone I really care about. They were, again, I love them. It's basically my brother, essentially. Not my actual brother, but he was going to get therapy done, and he was very excited about it. So I was happy for him. I literally love him, and I'm like, good. Like, you feel like you have this thing you want to discuss. I'm glad you're gonna go and work on yourself. Like, I'm not the kind of person personally that has never been involved with therapy, so I don't have anything bad about it. But I don't know enough about it to be like, it's the right thing or it's the wrong thing. So I was like, good. I'm happy you're helping yourself. And then he kept saying, or mentioned how like he was excited and how he makes it that therapist makes it easy to prescribe medication, and how that will be good for him. And in my head, I was like, so you think you can just get diagnosed in a day and then get put on medication? You think that's like a good thing? Like I was not trying to like say you're an idiot or anything, but my personal values really kind of weirdly disagreed with that, and I was kind of like, that feels like kind of weirdly like I don't know. I felt very uncomfortable by that because sure, you might be nervous, maybe you do have anxiety, maybe you do, I don't know, but in my mind, the way to get over something like that is through challenging yourself and doing the hard thing.
Right.
Because even myself, right, like my freshman year of college and my freshman year of life after I graduated college, when I went to Chicago for LinkedIn, was I thought like if I went to a therapist, I'm convinced they would have told me, like one of these therapists we were talking about would have told me, you have depression, right?
Yeah.
It was the hardest point in my life. I was so sad. I was not talking to my parents. Like, for example, I would literally my time when I was in college, I literally would not talk to anyone from home. I would self-isolate. I would not tell anyone. I literally gained a lot of weight. I had broken off my relationship in both cases. I was going through hell. And like, I know objectively this is a depressive state.
Yeah.
But the last thing I ever wanted to do was call myself depressed and then take a medicine or something that will alter my brain chemistry for a temporary struggle that I was having. Because in my head, I'm like, wow, like that seems so scary to do.
Of course.
Something that I didn't personally agree with. But I think everyone, again, I'm not a therapist, but this is my kind of stance on it, or like opinion. Like, I'm just kind of thinking out loud was,
Sure.
I think everyone has a moment when they're having a hard time, right? Like, if you're sad, you could be depressed, but maybe you're not depressed. Maybe you're just sad. If you're, you have anxiety, maybe you don't have anxiety. Maybe you're just scared. But what do you think about that? I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but this is kind of like how I've perceived this from my lived experience. And the last thing I want to do is like lose my friends and myself and people I care about to like a prescription that people are giving for their business. Not even what's right for them as a person, if that makes sense.
Sure. Well, here's the thing, right? When I'm saying these idiots are excited to go to therapy, I mean the idiots that want to go there because they don't want to do any work.
Yeah.
And the answer is as simple as saying, you know why I cancel on you and I'm such an unreliable person? Because I have anxiety. Oh, and my therapist told me I have anxiety. So now I could just cancel on you. I get a free pass. And I can't stand those people because they annoy the crap out of me because they are the epiphany of like a virtue signaler. Like they'll be that person that advocates for mental health and yet they do nothing about their own. And I can't stand that. I really can't stand that crap because it's so annoying.
Yeah.
So here's what I've come to find. All of these emotions or all of these problems, depression, anxiety, etc., you're supposed to have them. They're helpful.
They're emotions, kind of, in a way.
Well, and even that, like, what's an emotion? An emotion is a feeling. What's a feeling? Is a feeling fact or not? And the answer is not.
Not.
Right, because feelings are individualistic, so they can't actually be factual, but what they are, they're indicators. So feelings aren't facts, but they're indicators. And then the question is, what do they indicate? And why do they indicate it? So I always like to teach people there is a positive and helpful intent behind everything. And it's not about saying you don't have things. It's just about not making them a life sentence, not making them a part of who you are.
Yeah.
You don't have depression.
I like that.
You experience it.
Yeah.
You don't have anxiety.
Yes, I agree with that.
Right? So if more people could figure that out, they could actually become objective and help themselves. Because if you believe you have this, and this is what I was saying before about the importance of identities. If you believe you have depression, you are depression. How do you overcome that? You can't.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah.
You can't become something that you are. Or sorry, you can't overcome something you are.
Yeah. So if you tell yourself you are that, then in your mind, it's written, it's done.
Yeah, and that also goes very deep into, which we could go down that rabbit hole if you want, but that goes very deep into subconscious processes and subconscious programming, which literally shapes and changes the neurology, like the physical layout of your brain. So that's a whole nother category that we could jump into, but here's something to really think about. People that say they have depression.
Okay.
What I would argue is understand what depression actually is. So they did really cool research on this. It's called, the study is on analytical rumination hypothesis, which is where depression came about, how it came about, why. So depression is an attempt, and it started with our ancestors, and it is an attempt to help you go deep enough, focus inward enough to find solutions to deeper interpersonal issues that you have yet to face. Most people that are in depression are in it because of the fact that they refuse to face something in their life that they have to face. And of course, we could say that there's nuances, right? Like if we go back to, I hate my job. You hate your job and you're not going to face that. And then you might say, well, I have a wife and I have kids and I have to support them and I have bills and this and that. Okay, sure. That might all be true.
Yeah.
But I've also come to find that there's always a creative way out of every problem. And if you can't change your circumstance, you change your expectation. So if you're like, I need this job, I literally have no other opportunities and I can't do anything else about it. Okay, great. Then how will hating that job serve you for the rest of your life? Because if you know you're going to retire from this job and you got 20 years to go and you're not willing to do anything to change your circumstance, change your expectation. And that's the only way, those are the only two options to find your happiness. So when people take a medication to get out of depression, I think that's absurd because you're not getting out of depression. You're numbing your emotions. And if you numb your emotions, then what? What do you feel? What do you experience? Here's a better question. I got one for you.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, they give you a medication, right?
Okay.
Does a medication cure illnesses or does it treat symptoms?
I think it depends on what it is, but I would say like for a cold and for allergies, like the lighter things, I would say it cures symptoms. Maybe for like an infection, it'll cure an infection, but I'd say the majority over the counter things at least
Sure.
cure symptoms.
Well, here's the thing. Does it always cure symptoms though? Like what does a cough suppressant do? Does it cure the cough or does it suppress the system that you're going to, I don't know, have to cough with?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Tylenol. That's
Tylenol,
another example,
Tylenol,
right?
Yeah, Advil, whatever.
Does it suppress a fever or does it cure your cold?
So suppresses the fever. Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
It's actually across the board in most medications that it suppresses symptoms so that your body can effectively do what it needs to do without you experiencing all the pain. But the body's going to work it out, right?
Yeah.
It's just going to help suppress it. And this is like 99% of the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
So if that's the same for like all of these cold medications, et cetera, how do you think it works with your mental health? Does it suppress the emotional turmoil?
Yeah.
Or does it actually cure the
It's
emotional
definitely
turmoil?
suppressed, without a doubt.
Right. So then what do you do? Now, here's the other part of it.
Yeah.
You're going to continuously take medications. As a therapist and working in 10 years as a therapist, traditional therapy, by the way, before I got into coaching, I know that they're always switching medications on people. Why? Loses effectiveness. Your body gets used to it. Then what winds up happening? Well, now you're going to start feeling your negative emotions again because they never went away. They were just suppressed.
Yeah.
And you're going to have a trial and error period where they're now going to test a new medication or up doses, lower doses, try new doses, pair
That can't be good
medications.
for you. That can't be good for you.
Of course it's not good for you. And then of course you're going to need more and more, which what does that do to your liver and your body?
Yeah, definitely bad.
Destroys it.
So then why are people, do you think, so into this concept of like this is the way forward? Like why do you think that's the case?
Well, now we might get into conspiracy theory waters, but who benefits from you being on medications your entire life that you should never come off of?
Well, yeah, it's definitely like these corporations.
Right. And then how do you get that to be so widely accepted? Make it an arm of a business that's widely accepted.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Therapy is widely accepted because everyone would probably agree on this planet. You probably have some. I know I have some. We all have some problem in our life.
Yeah, of course.
It's always better. Now, if you don't have the interpersonal tools to solve it yourself, it's always better to get a third-party perspective. And when that third-party perspective tells you, in my expert opinion, you could benefit from this. Like, let's use your friend who has anxiety.
Yeah.
You love him. I don't know him, so I love him too. I love him too by default.
Yeah, good.
He hasn't figured out how to overcome his anxiety. So for him, it's easier to get this pill that's going to suppress your anxiety than it is to do the work. Because here's the work. Take time. Take weeks, months, or years, depending on how long it takes you to implement, to figure out your anxiety and overcome it. Take the really hard steps. And the really hard step is you're going to feel anxiety when you go out. Do it anyway. And then use the tools of mindfulness or whatever you need to do to get yourself grounded and oriented. And then use some additional tools to start pushing yourself to change and evolve as a person. And then after a few weeks, months, or years of doing that, congrats, your social anxiety is gone.
Yeah.
But you could do that, or you could suppress it and go out like a normal person tomorrow.
Yeah.
Literally tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that becomes easy. And if you ever saw, there's this great meme I always love.
Okay, what is it?
Yeah, it's this funny meme.
Yeah.
You have two lines, or you have two stalls. One line says uncomfortable truths, and there's a guy sitting behind it. And the other stall says comforting lies, and there's a guy sitting behind that. And the line for the uncomfortable truths is nobody. There's nobody there. The guy's sitting like this at the stall.
Yeah.
And the line for uncomfortable truths stretches around until it's out of focus.
Yeah.
That, in my opinion, sums up most modern day mental health for people.
Yeah, no, it's real. That's why I was even asking, like, why do you think most people like are into this thing? And it wasn't even from the corporation side. It's like nowadays, like parents and like people who are directly involved, like girlfriends, parents, cousins, siblings. They're the ones saying you should do this now, and it's like they've really, it's not they've, but like it's really became the new like approach that like this is the way for like it's became the way, and I'm like, what did that happen? I don't know. It's very fascinating. That's kind of where I want to shift to now is like to how this affects people's careers and like professional development, because you do a lot of work with CEOs, with young entrepreneurs, literally everyone in this like, you know, like professional development journey.
Right.
What are like the biggest things you've learned about mental health and about people that have been in relation to people's professional development? Like, what are some of the things that you've noticed from your 10 years of expertise that like these things really matter? These things are brought up a lot. These things, like, what are some of those things that you've been noticing? I'm curious.
And you know what's interesting is it really does vary between persons and situations.
Yeah.
So I had 10 years experience as a traditional therapist, and I worked in inpatient, outpatient, hospitals, clinics, homeless shelters, private practice, Department of Education, applied behavioral analysis, and I was a traveling home therapist.
So everything.
Everything, a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And then I have 5 years as a therapist / coach. And so collectively I have 15. I started at 18 years old.
Wow.
Co-facilitating groups alongside licensed therapists, psychologists,
Yeah.
etc. And, you know, now I'm here where I am. And there's very stark differences. Like working with a schizophrenic in an inpatient unit
Yeah.
is very different than working with a CEO who runs a
big
multi-million-dollar
company.
company. Correct. And so I think part of all of this work is also understanding people's unique spot in their unique journey, because it is very individualistic, dynamic work. When people tell you, like, I hate most coaches. I really do.
Yeah.
I've gotten on calls with coaches and to some degree called them full of shit to their face because, oh man, I'll never forget. There was this one guy, he wanted me to be on his podcast and he never invited me on after this, but it was
That wasn't me, yo.
no, it wasn't you. Clearly. But no, it's this other guy, and he was a coach. He was certified through ICF.
Yeah.
And we were talking. He's like, yeah, you know, what do you think of like this coaching journey? And I'm like, dude, most coaches suck. Most coaches don't know how to help people. They'll sit there and they'll be stuck with people and just take their money. He's like, well, I learned as an ICF accredited coach that if somebody is stuck, you're supposed to just sit with them in their journey. I'm like, that's bullshit, man. You're serious about that? I was like, no, when somebody's stuck, if you can't help them, you should probably tell them, hey, this is beyond my capability. I can't help you. Because when someone's stuck, it means they don't have a tool set, a skill set, a knowledge set, a resource. They don't have something they need.
Yeah.
And if you're not providing it to them, just tell them I don't know how to help you anymore and let them go.
Then they'll stay stuck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let them go. Stop taking their money because the process is to sit stuck. I'm like, that's some bullshit.
Yeah.
He's like, well, I don't know, man. I mean, that's what I learned. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't believe in that.
Yeah.
I think that's bullshit.
That's wrong. That's
Yeah.
like ethically wrong.
Yeah.
It's like,
So he never invited me on his podcast, suffice to say, but you know,
that would have been a good episode. That would have been a good
would have been a great episode. But I think to the point though, this is like understanding people's unique journeys.
Yeah.
And when I work with most people nowadays, what I would call my typical client is a high performer.
Okay.
And what's very different about the average everyday person and a high performer, the high performer doesn't just want to be overly validated and talk about things. Mm-hmm. Most average person in therapy wants to go there and just get their feelings or their thoughts validated. And I've noticed this a lot because, I mean, this is what I experienced.
Yeah.
And when you challenge a lot of people, they don't like it. I've gotten people tell me,
Yes,
I don't think you
yes.
understand me. It's like, no, I understand you. You just don't want to change.
You don't want to hear it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What I love about high performers is they want to hear it. They want to hear. I have clients that are like, can you please tell me if I'm being a bitch or not? And I'm like, oh, 100%. I will. And I'll tell you. I'll let you know if I think you're being a bitch, or
Yeah,
I'll let you
good.
know if I think this is real and legitimate.
Yeah.
And so we'll do depth work where we'll go and figure out like, hey, here's your issue that you developed in your childhood, and here's how it's manifesting here in your present day and age in your business or your life. And then they'll be like, great, so what do I do about it? And that's one of the biggest differences, is that they're curious on what actions to take and how to perform better. Solution oriented, action oriented. Let's come up with a plan. Let's challenge it. I have a client right now.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. He and I last week made a goal.
Okay.
And he has a little bit of social anxiety.
Yeah.
And so the goal is he was going to start one conversation per day, no matter how long or how short, doesn't matter. But you're going to start one conversation per day, just saying something about somebody like, hey, I love your shoes.
Yeah.
Where'd you get them?
Yeah.
And that's the goal.
Okay.
And for every day that you don't do that, you have to donate $50 to a charity of your choice. So we checked in this week. And listen, a big part of this personal development work is it's integrity based. I can only help you with what you tell me.
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
only hold you accountable if you're honest, right?
Yeah.
So I said, how'd it go? He said, I only talked to 5 people. I'm like, great. Where are you donating $100 to? He's like, shit. He's like, really, man? I was like, yeah, of course. You agreed to. I was like, look, it's right there in the notes. And he's like, all right. So he sent me a screenshot, made his donation. But like that right there, that's a man that's going to make some serious changes because he's action oriented. He takes it seriously. He's keeping his word. He's following through.
Yeah.
And I guarantee he's going to be a better person because of that.
Yeah.
Your average person wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
crazy. I'll never pay money because you told me to do that.
Well, you know why though?
Why?
They wouldn't want to pay the money because they anticipate that they're going to fail.
Yeah, because they know they're gonna fail, so they're like, I'm not gonna do this shit because I know I'm not gonna get there.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the high performer will take on that heavy commitment because they know they might fail, but they also anticipate they'll fail less if they actually have a reason not to.
Yeah, yeah.
And so they'll challenge themselves.
And do you like? This is what I'm curious. Did you feel like that was always something you wanted to do? Was be with high performers, or were you kind of like how do you decide? How did you just land? This is where you wanted to end up. Like how did that happen?
The market chose me. When I first started entrepreneurship, like every other entrepreneur,
Yeah.
I was pretty broke and needed money.
Yeah.
So I worked with
Hey,
everybody.
You know me right now, man. I'm trying.
Everybody who's watching and listening, give this man $1. Anyway,
please.
if you're looking for a good charitable cause to donate to, it's the MMR fund, Make Me Rich. It's his fund. So I started with everybody, and I had like teenagers. I had not kids, but I think my youngest teen that I worked with at the time was like 16.
Okay.
I had adults. I had plenty of everybody was virtually a 9-to-5 person.
Yeah.
And I was just, I'll take anybody. I wound up really saying like, maybe I should start trying to work with entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Like, it's an interesting world. But here's the thing. If you step into, you've probably heard the saying before, get in the room. Sometimes we go into rooms that the person we are cannot sustain being in.
Okay.
And this was very true for me. I was stepping into rooms with entrepreneurs and business owners. I joined networking groups and
Yeah.
I was trying to get coaching clients in there. And I wound up getting my first ever executive coaching client. And she was paying me a great amount, like great for me at the time.
Yeah,
It
of
was,
course.
it was almost 50% of my income.
Yeah.
And I got fired. I didn't know what I was doing. I really sucked as a coach.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, I walked into our office one day because we had a session scheduled.
Yeah.
And she goes, oh, God damn it. Why are you here?
Wow.
I'm like, we have a session today. She's like, I should have canceled it. I was like, why? She's like, you can't help me. She's like, I don't even know why you're here. And I'm like, well, I was like, I could try. So she's like, all right, let's go. And we go sit down in the office. And she's like, all right, here's what I'm dealing with. What am I going to do? I'm like, well, why don't you try this? And why don't you try that? And she's like, no. That won't work. I already know myself. See, this is what I mean. You can't help me.
Yeah.
She's like, listen, it's been okay while you were here. She's like, but I'm not renewing this package. After our last session, which, by the way, give my sessions to the other guy because she had me coaching her and like another member on her team.
Yeah.
So I just give them to him. I don't want to do any more with you. Like literally, like just beat me up.
Wow.
Yeah. So package was over. Like the last day, I was like, hey, it's the last session. I know we're not renewing. I just want to say thank you and I appreciate like working with you. And she's like, all right, well, yeah, it was great. And that was it, right? And so after I beat myself up over like, wow, I screwed up. I lost my biggest client. I took a 50% hit to my income. Like I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I started saying, well, why did that go so poorly? And I had to ask myself these questions, like, why did I suck as a coach?
Yeah.
And it was because, funny enough,
Yeah.
I was still looking at it from a therapy perspective. The high performer wants to be challenged. The high performer very rarely has someone challenge them. Think about it. You're the CEO. How many of your clients are going to call you out and be like, hey, you're being a dick, or you're being this, or you're being that, or whatever the case may be? Not often.
Yeah.
They're actually paying you
To come in there and tell them what no one has the balls to tell them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And hopefully to provide another perspective because you're detached from the situation, the industry, and their company. So I realized I failed her. I realized I really didn't do right by her, and I really wasn't ready to be an executive coach. So I went even deeper into coaching. I really went further into like business, learning business mastery and things like that. And I got my coaching started under Tony Robbins' training program.
Oh, wow. It's amazing.
And that's where I learned a bigger bulk of how to really be a coach. And so from there, I had another opportunity present. I was on this app. Maybe you heard of it. It's called Shaper.
No, I haven't heard of it.
I don't know if it's even still around.
Yeah.
But it was like networking. It was the Tinder of networking, or networking of Tinder. I don't know, whatever. But you would. Yeah, I don't know how to phrase that.
The Tinder of networking.
The Tinder of networking. Yeah. So you'd swipe for professional connections.
Yeah.
Like, who do you want to network with?
Yeah.
It's a great one in theory, but people on there were super flaky. And then, of course, you got millions of people trying to sell you MLM stuff. Anyway, there was one day, because I was so used to that being full of crap and people always trying to sell me stuff, some guy is reaching out to me and he's spelling my name wrong. He keeps calling me Vicente. I'm like, okay, this is probably bullshit. Yeah. So I was like taking days at a time to answer this guy. He'd be like, Vicente, what would be super helpful for you? I'm like, here we go. He's going to make me a millionaire by selling his MLM crap. And I'm like, I want coaching clients, man. If you got any of those, just send them my way. Like I was being a dick. I was being a dick. Yeah. This guy was a venture capitalist. Yeah. But I thought he was full of shit because most people with a VC title live in their parents' basement. Yeah. So I'm just putting him off. He's like, well, you know what, man? I love your background. I love what you do. I would love to introduce you to this guy. He's the founder of a company I invested in. I think he could really use your help. He's got a little bit of anger, but it seems like you might be the right guy. I was like, all right, we'll take the call. We'll see. Yeah. So I get on the call, and he creates this intro to this founder, and then boom, I get my first ever startup founder as a coaching client. Yeah. And from there, I started getting some referrals, and I started doing better in these networking groups. And ultimately, with this heavy-handed like accountability and coaching approach, a lot of the people that were in 9-to-5s didn't really appreciate it. And a lot of them started, Vin, thank you. I feel like I need something else. And I'm like, totally understand, no worries. And those people started going away voluntarily. And then the people that I really started to enjoy working with, which were these entrepreneurs and these executives and some organizations, started coming to me through referral or word of mouth, or I met them at events. And that's how my clientele just naturally phased itself out. So that was it. That was how it happened.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's cool. I think it's a funny journey, especially coming from the first one you ever had, like how that went. And then
so bad.
You went from like what was like a CEO to startup founder, and then you kind of went kind of up the hill that way.
Actually, here's a funny thing. You could see it. You could search this, and so could the listeners. Yeah. When I first started my journey as an entrepreneur, I had joined Tony Robbins' Business Mastery event. Okay. So this was virtual. I think it was still during COVID. And so the virtual event had 35,000+ attendees. And Tony, during COVID, was doing all of his events through like a Zoom format. And on these events, for him to see people, he would have to like swipe. And he had like, 10 or 15 screens that he had to swipe through, right? And so at one point, he calls and he says, who needs a business intervention? Mind you, at the time, I was really sucking. I couldn't figure out how to land clients. I was struggling hard. So I raised my hand. I was like, me. I didn't get picked. Yeah. He picked a whole bunch of other people. And then he picks this one woman. And I'm like, damn, guess there goes my chance. And woman had technical issues. And then all of a sudden I hear, all right, we're going to pick someone else. How about Vincent Infante? I'm like, oh, Tony Robbins just called me for a business intervention. Holy crap. So he called on me. He starts dissecting the business. And man, I did not know anything about business. He kept asking me, he's like, who's your ideal client? I'm like, somebody who needs help. He's like, yeah, but who needs help? I'm like, people that are struggling with problems. And he's like, yeah, but who has problems? Everyone. This was like
he's breaking you down like in real time.
Yeah, but I could not get it. And so the reason I'm saying everybody could look this up is because they actually recorded that. Yeah. Now they use it as a training, and they ran the video as ads to teach people how to start building a coaching business.
With you, and it was
me,
wow.
So
I'm gonna go watch it after. That's funny.
Yeah, you can see it on. They have the what is it, the channel on YouTube.
Yeah.
The Robbins Madonna's training. And it's a whole like a 45, 50-minute video of Tony giving me a business intervention. And it's funny because I watched it. I'm like, wow, I knew nothing
back then.
and it was so bad. And I watched the video and I feel physical pain when I watch it because of how inexperienced I was.
Yeah.
But that was, that was a valuable learning experience. And it's just to the point of like, I didn't really choose this. It kind of picked me based on just my journey.
Yeah. No, well, after this, we're gonna make a post, and after Tony's gonna see what you're doing now, be like, "Wow, this guy really came out this far from not knowing what he was doing."
Yeah,
that's wild, and that's why again I kind of want to kind of go back to helping people like that are in their careers. Like, what are some things that let's say college students or young people, like maybe people like myself, who are trying to figure out life after college and they're in their rookie years of adulthood, right? Like that's how I'm looking at it, right? What are some things that you think people should actually be doing to like take care of themselves to enable them to go through life with this ability to succeed? Like I think that's the whole idea of what Growth Street is like I know it's not up and it's not always up. It's up, down, left, right, 2 steps back, 5 steps forward, hopefully. But I know it's not easy. So I give a lot of tangible advice, right? Like this is what you should be doing to take yourself one step ahead, right? But you come from a complete different angle where it's all mentally how you can set yourself up to succeed. That's what it sounds like. So what would you tell a 20 to 25-year-old who's maybe trying to figure out this rookie year of adulthood but wants to be a successful person after, you've been with all these C-suite and startup founders and things like that? What have you learned and what advice would you have for that person who has that kind of question for you?
I'll give you a story.
Tell me. Let's hear it. I love stories, man. This is what I'm here for.
So when I was a firefighter and we just started, like I was a probie, this was in the fire academy.
Yeah.
I remember the first day was so weird because nobody really knows what to do and you're just standing there in line with your head shaved. And and you have these guys, these drill instructors are walking around. They're always yelling at you. No matter what you do, you're getting yelled at. It doesn't matter. If you yawn, you get push-ups. if you twitch, you get, I don't know, you get jumping jacks. If you fart, oh man, you don't want to fart. Like I had a guy have to do push-ups because you're supposed to be clean shaven every day.
Yeah.
And this guy had to do push-ups because his nose hairs were too long.
That's crazy.
I'm not even kidding you. He's like, what part of clean shaven don't you understand? He's like, sir. He's like, you're supposed to be fully clean shaven. He's like, sir, permission to speak. I am clean shaven. He's like, then what's up with your nose hairs? Get down on your face. And like push-ups.
Wow. Yeah.
But aside from all that crazy crap, one of the funnier things was the drill instructors always used to say, like, these are your halls. Like, clean your halls. And I'm like, this place ain't my place. Screw you, bro. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But it was more being instilled with this mentality of everything is yours. And this mentality it's very difficult to comprehend to some degree, but it's extremely important. One thing that I do, and I had somebody ask me about this the other day, was in the gym, if I go into an area, I clean it up. So I'll go, like, let's just say I'm going to go to the machine with the cables. Right?
Yeah.
It's like everybody's probably seen it. If you've been to a gym, you've seen it.
Yeah.
And people are always leaving the attachments everywhere. Like I'll go there and there's like 7 attachments on the floor.
On the floor, yeah.
I grab all 7 attachments. I put them back. And I've had trainers thank me. They're like, hey, thanks for putting all those things back. But why'd you do it? I'm like, it's my gym. It's my gym. The whole gym. This gym's my gym.
Yeah.
So if something's out of place because it's my gym, I have to clean it. Because somebody made the mess. It doesn't matter who made it. It doesn't matter why it got made. The problem is there's a mess and it's not clean. And this is my gym, so I have to do it. It's my house. It's my job. It's my office. It's my whatever. Everything is mine. And when you actually assume full responsibility over things being the way you want them to be, because it's all yours, all of a sudden you start changing. I've noticed the most successful people always do that. The most successful people do not blame anybody for anything. If there's trash that needs to be taken out and they could do it, they'll do it. Now, there's a fine line when things are supposed to switch to. Like if you're the CEO, you have 30 meetings that day and your time is like to the second.
Yeah.
You're not going to throw out trash.
Yeah.
But if you're a CEO, you have a smaller company, you have a few free minutes, you don't have to wait until 6 o'clock for the janitor to come in to throw out the trash. You could probably just do it right then and there. It's really not a big deal. So assuming responsibility when it makes sense to, like if, even I think they said, for instance, maybe Bill Gates is so wealthy that if he dropped $100 on the floor, and he makes so much money that if he dropped $100, he would actually lose money by stopping to pick up that $100.
That's crazy.
Because like that's how valuable his time is.
Yeah.
So that's when like that dichotomy shifts. But most entrepreneurs, executives,
Are not
and CEOs
that level.
are not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
naturally,
you're
yeah.
not Bill Gates. You're not going to
Yeah.
drop $100 and not pick it up. Right. So at the end of the day, it's how much responsibility can you assume over your life? Now bring that to the student experience.
Yeah.
When I was a victim in college and even before that, it was always everybody made me miserable. It was the bully that made my life worse. It was the unreasonable teacher that would not give me an extra point so I didn't have to go to summer school, Miss Lopiano. And I had summer school for religion. I got a 64 in religion.
That ain't right, man.
You know what? I forgive her. I do, because she was pregnant. And I know that was probably a very hard thing to deal with, being in a high school with a bunch of
I can't
jerks.
imagine, yeah.
So it's okay. Time well served. But that's really the biggest thing, is you could either put responsibility on everybody else, or
Yeah.
you could say that everything is yours and see how you could really make it work for you instead of against you. And most college kids are so wildly out of control that everything is everybody else's fault. Like, my life sucks because of the politics of the world, because of the financial structures, because of this, because of that.
Yeah.
When will it be your fault?
Yeah.
When will it be that you don't know enough to actually make enough? When will it be that you don't have your own crap figured out, so you don't know what direction to go in? When will it be that you didn't go to the gym, so your physical wellness sucks and you can't get a girl? Like, when will it be anything that you've actually done that has contributed to the state of your life currently where it stands?
Yeah.
Or here's the best one, and I'll let you go after this because I'm probably tangenting.
No, I love this. This is like I'm so fascinated, man. Keep going.
When will you stop saying that because of what happened to you as a child is why you are the way you are as an adult? Because yes, though you are not responsible for the programming you received as a child, you're 100% responsible for how you go about conducting yourself as an adult. And I get these clients who, I told you, I've had older clients. We were chopping it up a bit before this.
Yeah.
I've had clients in their 50s or 60s perpetuating crap from when they were 10.
Wow.
And you know what I say to them, which is probably one of the most revolutionary things they might have never heard, is, so you stopped growing when you were 10 years old. Because now you're 60 and you're still acting as if you were that 10-year-old child. And listen, we could go deeper on that, right? We call that an inner child wound, where you have to heal the inner child. And like, that's fair. But that's ultimately what it is.
Yeah.
You've stopped growing in that specific area of your life at 10 years old. And you've been perpetuating it for over 40 to 50 years. Aren't you tired of that yet?
Yeah.
Aren't you tired of being that same person for 50 years? Like, when do you say, okay, I got to do something about this? It really can't just be that I keep meeting crappy, toxic women or toxic guys.
Yeah.
It's really something you're doing that's perpetuating it. So
You have your own responsibility on
Yeah.
your own life. Yeah. Because especially if you're in your 20s, it's like, you still have, what, 50, 60, 70 years left. Why let the last 10 affect your next 60?
Yeah,
Yeah.
ultimately. So if this is what I tell people, you have to have that extreme ownership. The
Say that
biggest piece, extreme ownership.
Okay,
the
yeah.
biggest piece of my life and part of my story, and I won't share the whole keynote, but the most pivotal moment was when I had a conversation with myself in the mirror. And I think everybody should do this if you haven't. If you're listening at home and you're struggling with crap, and at this point you don't think I'm a jerk, take this advice. Essentially,
If you made it this far, I mean, hey. Right?
yeah, if you made it this far, you might like me a little bit. But for me, living as a victim was most of my life. Like, I always tell people, so I'm 33. I'm going to be 34 coming up next year, right? 2025.
Yeah.
And I was bullied and outcasted as early as like first grade.
Wow.
I remember like we would play house and I was
Yeah.
the dog.
Yeah.
I was always the dog.
Yeah.
Because nobody wanted to really play with me.
Yeah.
And I would always be the butt of jokes. And as I got older, they got worse and worse. So what is that? From the time you're in roughly what?
6 years old.
6 years old. So let's just say from 6 until about 23 years old, I lived as a victim. And mind you, at 6, it wasn't as extreme, but it was
Yeah,
that realization that like I had trouble connecting with people. I didn't really have many friends. And so 6 to 23, I had struggled as a victim. From 24 to 33, now I've been pretty empowered. So I've actually still to this day lived longer as a victim than I have as someone who's empowered.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
So
By 10 years, by double almost.
right.
Yeah.
Right. So with that being said, I'm not so far removed that I don't know what it's like.
Yeah, you remember.
It's been a very short time that I've been somewhat successful in life. And the biggest thing that I say set me up for that was my life-changing conversation, my moment in the mirror. And it was me coming to terms with the fact that I had to have this acknowledgement that I was a loser. So you do like to give practical steps and tricks, and so do I.
Yeah.
So I tell people my OR methodology.
Okay.
And it's relatively simple. You've ever heard that saying, up shit's creek without a paddle?
I've heard it, but it's not like one of the things. I've heard it before, though, yeah.
Okay. So for the listeners who've never heard it because they're younger, maybe.
Yeah, probably.
It's a saying, I'm not that old. Come on. But it's the laugh lines, right? The saying is essentially you're up shit's creek without a paddle, which means you're screwed.
Yeah.
You're completely screwed because you're going up this creek, you're in your boat, you have no paddle, you can't steer. What that means is whatever situation you're in is completely out of control. But what if you had an oar? Well, what's an oar? An oar is not maybe as thick or great as a paddle, but it still would give you an opportunity to steer your ship when otherwise you're out of control. So what an oar is ownership, acceptance / accountability, and responsibility. And what that 3-part process is very simple. This conversation, this moment I had in the mirror, was me owning and accepting that my life was the way it was because of who I was. Like, hey man, Vin, who are you? Well, you're a loser, you're anxious, you're depressed, nobody really admires you, you're not this great person, you're not a leader. And I just listed all of these things off and I acknowledged who I was. And I own that. I own that part of me. Like, this is who I am, whether I like it or not. Now, the acceptance part is being able to come to terms with that. That the only reason your present day is what it is because of the things you did or did not do. And the accountability is to now say, so if that's all true, I need to now take a further step and ask myself, who do I want to become? And then I did that. And I said, okay, so you're aware that this is who you are. Is this who you want to be? And the answer is obviously no, because who the hell wants to live that way?
Yeah.
And then the question is, so who do you want to be? Well, I want to be a leader. I want to be enthusiastic. I want to be excited. I want to be happy. I want to be joyful. I want to be all these amazing things.
Of course.
And then it's coming to that last part of, okay, if you want to be all of those things, what would you do? How do you do it? How do you become those things? What are the actions, the steps? What's the thought process, the mindset? There's a whole bunch of aspects in there. And then you have that responsibility to create the outcome you want in life and change the trajectory of your life forever. That's your responsibility, though. Nobody else's. I don't give a shit about politics, war, nothing. That's your responsibility. So if you use an oar, you could change the whole trajectory of your life.
Yeah.
And, well, you won't be up shit's creek without a paddle now.
Yeah. And do you feel like your time, like that one conversation was like that was your moment? Like that was it like actually you standing in front of your mirror and having that moment?
Yeah, no, I literally, so I left out a few things because we didn't go deep into my past, which thank you, by the way. Everybody always asks me. I'm so bored of it. But
if you want to talk about it, I'm here.
I'm going to give you a piece. I'll give you a piece because it's important to the question you asked. When I was transitioning from high school to college, and I was so tired of being this loser.
Yeah.
I was like, something needs to change.
What is loser? Can you like break down what like loser is though? Like what was that?
Yeah, so I got thrown down steps.
Yeah.
In high school I used to get shoved into the trash can, like thrown in it.
Wow.
And pushed down.
Yeah.
And I had to like wiggle out of it.
Yeah.
I had no girlfriends, couldn't get a girl. I was a little chubby. Got made fun of a lot. I also had gyno, so that really didn't help. For any of you that aren't familiar, gyno's development of breast tissue in men, which it goes away in most men, but not for me. So I had a lot of this. I had a lot of getting bullied physically, mentally, emotionally, and nobody, like I had no friends. I had one friend in high school. Yeah. And I hung out with him every day, and that was basically it. Yeah. I really just didn't have anything going for me, in my opinion. I was failing a lot. That's why I went to summer school every year.
Yeah.
But it was because I hated school. and I got really addicted to video games, and that was basically how I spent most of my time. So
Yeah.
that was me being a loser, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I was tired of that guy. So I wanted to create a new identity, a new persona. And going from high school to college, I wrote Vincenzo instead of Vincent on all my college transcripts. And dude, the freaking degrees that I have all say Vincenzo.
Yeah.
That's not even my name. That's
Yeah.
what's most hilarious about it. So all my college degrees say Vincenzo on them, which is great.
Yeah.
And I created this persona, which sort of worked actually. Like
Yeah.
I started wearing nicer clothes. I started spiking my hair. I grew a beard. So I went to Catholic school. So you had to shave your face and keep your hair a specific way. And so after that, like I changed up my style and I started becoming popular, but I didn't know what that was.
Yeah, yeah.
So I had all types of issues. I had codependency issues where I would like, if the girl wasn't texting me all day, every day, I thought she hated me.
Yeah.
And then I go harder to try to get her to like me. And
Yeah.
that never works. If you're
Never.
listening and you do that, don't do it. It never works. Never works. Dude, if a friend went out without inviting me, I'd like text my friend and be like, did I do something wrong to you? I'm not even exaggerating. That's like
Yeah.
what I would say.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I was so hurt that they didn't invite me. And this was me not dealing with my shit and projecting it on them.
other people, yeah.
But these were all the insecurities I had from my lack of confidence and being bullied and all this crap. So I didn't even know what it was like to really have friendships.
Yeah.
So this was just me trying to figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
It didn't. I didn't figure it out for a long time. But all of those moments and all of that pain did actually lead to, now I'm 23 years old. I don't know if this is factual, but I would argue at 23, I was probably the youngest kid to graduate with a master's degree from my college program.
Wow, where'd you go to school?
So I went to Hunter for my master's.
Okay.
And I mean, but realistically, how many kids graduate at 23
No,
with a
like,
6-year degree?
Yeah, seriously, not many people at all. Yeah.
So I would say I was probably one of, if not the youngest kid in my college to graduate. I have a full-fledged career in front of me.
Congrats.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, man.
23 years old. I
Had a
was,
little pat on the back right there.
yeah, I
Subtle flex.
I just did what I had to do.
Yeah,
I wanted to get through it because I
Yeah,
wanted to
yeah.
get into the field.
For sure.
And so, you know, I have this career. I had money in the bank I worked a lot. I had, during the summers, I had a 40-hour-a-week job. I was working at a clinical program in a hospital during the summers. And then during the weekends, I was also working at that program during the year. And I would also take a summer course every semester for half the summer. And then I'd work the other half full time.
Yeah.
And then I was a personal trainer. So I was always...
You were keeping busy, man.
I was busy, man. I had those 2 jobs and I was going to school full time and interning. So at the end now, 23 years old, I quit all my jobs. I was like, screw this shit. Quit my jobs.
Yeah.
I got a Camaro.
Yeah, let's go.
I got a hot girl.
Yeah.
And I got some tattoos.
Let's go.
And I was like, I'm going to live it up this summer. And I did, man. I blew through so much money. I regret it now because those investments could have paid dividends. But hindsight, right? Anyone who's got money right now, go invest it. Anyway, so not financial advice. But with that being said, I was trying to figure myself out.
Yeah.
I was so depressed. I was so upset. I was so anxious. And I couldn't figure it out. And then you can't tell anybody because I'm 23 years old. I'm a decent looking guy with a hot girl and a great car.
Yeah.
And a career in front of me.
Yeah.
And I'm like sitting here miserable. And so if you tell someone, you get the typical, you're ungrateful.
Yeah, yeah, seriously.
You know, you actually can't talk about the fact that you feel like crap with
When
most
you're doing
people.
good.
If you're doing good.
Yeah,
Yes.
because then they're like, oh, well, because even me, I posted a YouTube short the other day, and it was like, I had 3 podcast guests cancel on this weekend, but I'm going to keep grinding hard. I got an episode done at the 18th hour of the day. And the one top comment was like, I got off a 15-year-old job in construction. Why are you complaining about your podcast job? And I'm like, damn, yo. I'm like, yo, are you serious, bro?
Yeah.
So I trust me. I hear you on that, man.
You're not allowed to have your own experience. How dare you?
Right? I know.
Everybody has it worse, right?
I know.
And so that
Reminded
was
me of that.
right, but that's the truth though.
Yeah.
Like we shame people that have problems. Like I work with a lot of very successful clients.
Yeah.
Just because they're successful doesn't mean they're happy or fulfilled. And then people be like, "Oh, the successful CEO with $1 million is depressed. Boo hoo!" It's like, yeah, but he's got different problems than you do.
Yeah.
Right. Like people always like to say, "Oh, you have problems. What about a starving kid in Africa? I'm like, I'm not a starving kid in Africa. I'm a white dude in America. Like, there's a difference. I'm going to have different problems than him.
Yeah, of course.
It sucks for him, but it also sucks for me in my own way.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, listen, arguably, if me and him were in the same freaking realm, he has it way worse than me. But I'm not in Africa and I'm not starving, and he's not in America and he's not succeeding.
Yeah.
There's two different issues. So comparing issues is also a disservice to not only yourself, but the other person.
Yeah.
Because then it means like, you're in this ranking of hierarchy of who has a worse life, and that
weird.
doesn't
This is
solve
weird.
crap
Yeah,
either.
it doesn't. Yeah.
It's like, why are you fighting for your problems? Anyway, off topic. But with that being said, I couldn't figure it out. I'm like, I have the hot girl, I have the nice car, I have money, I have a career ahead of me, I'm young. I have everything that society says is supposed to make me happy, so why am I miserable? And that literally led me to go into the bathroom, and I just slam my hands on the counter. I'm like, what's wrong with me? And I remember I really couldn't figure it out, but I was so frustrated with life. And I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, holy shit, I get it now. You're Vincent. And why that was so powerful was because I changed my name. Figuratively, right? I wrote Vincenzo. I was unwilling to accept who I was because I thought who I was not good enough, was a loser, was this person that was the reason for all of my struggles in life.
Yeah.
Like, because you're Vincent, your life sucks. That's your problem. And so I thought if I just changed my name, that would make problems go away. But the bigger reality was that I was unwilling to accept that, first up, there was nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
And the other part was that that's just who you are. You're Vincent. You can't change that. And so I spent all this time trying to be somebody I wasn't, only to realize that I had to become someone else to realize the only person I needed to be was myself.
Yeah, and put love onto that person.
And that is why being able to say my own name and, finally accepting myself in that moment in the mirror was so pivotal to the transformation journey. Dude, that same week, I walked into my therapist's office. He was a great guy, but never helped me.
Yeah.
I was seeing him for 6 years, man.
Yeah.
And
Holy shit.
Zero results.
Yeah.
Zero. And I walked into his office, and again, I was bought in too. I was like, oh, as a therapist, you need to go to therapy.
He's like the stuck guy saying, oh, if I'm here for your stuck, then.
I walked in, and I said, hey, his name is Bill. I was like, hey, Bill, this is going to be my last week with you. He's like, well, that's abrupt. I'm like, it sure is, but I think I got it now.
Let's go.
And I just left.
Yeah, wow.
And I never went back.
Wow.
And that moment in the mirror, the ownership, the accountability, and the embracing of a new identity, those were the key moments. Like, that didn't change my life, but it gave me the moment to create the change in my life. Because change is interesting. Change happens in an instant, but it is the process to get to that change that takes time. Like, all of the hardship was the process to get to the change. The moment in the mirror. And then that also created another process, which I believe I'm still in now.
Yeah.
And that process also always changes too. So it's consistently evolving.
Like, that's when you see the road ahead. Like, that was your, like, okay, it's not changed yet, but now I see the road. Before I was in the dark. Yeah. But I thought I was seeing things, but now it's right in front of me. Now I can see it.
Well, you know what it is? Actually, here's the interesting thing you bring up. A lot of people think, well, you see the road, but it's not enough to actually see the road. I saw the end. Because whenever you're going to start something, you need to start with the end in mind. Because if you don't, it's like walking around blindly. Like, where are you going?
You don't know your goal.
And action without purpose is pointless. That's why most people actually can't complete shit. Because they're like, okay, I need to go to the gym every day. Why? Well, because I shouldn't be 400 pounds. Why? Well, it's unhealthy. So what do you care?
What's the final thing that you're aiming to get out of it?
And then it's even once you know what you're aiming to get, it's also about, do you believe yourself to be that person? Like, I would argue, if you're 400 pounds right now, if you're this big fat person and you hate being this big fat person, literally start identifying with the fact that you are a skinny person. But not like in the just manifested crap. Manifestation has gone so left. Yeah. I do believe in manifestation, but I think there's actually a science to it. Yeah. Because to manifest, I believe you need to be the thing that you want to bring into your life. Like, here's a great example. You're 400 pounds. You're this big fat person. You hate it. You're like, I don't want to be this way anymore. Yeah. Identify with the fact that you are a fit person. And then what winds up happening is, as you actually believe you're a fit person, even if the rest of the world can't see it, because you're still 400 pounds at this point, if you identify with saying, I am a healthy person, I'm committed to this is my identity, this is what I tend to do, I'm going to be in this great, amazing shape, and this is what it's going to look like. What you start seeing is the deeper psychological impacts of that. Because by embracing an identity, it starts shifting and shaping your subconscious. When you have a different and shaped subconscious, you start looking at things differently, which means it starts, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, which means now you start doing things differently. So even if you're still 400 pounds, you might decide to eat the grilled chicken instead of the, Wendy's cheeseburger.
Yeah.
You might decide to go for a walk instead of watching Netflix. You might decide to have water instead of drinking soda because you've identified as this fit person.
Yeah.
The rest of the world won't see it, but that's okay. It's not about them. You have to watch that the physical world has to catch up to the internal world. It's never the other way.
But do you actually think that like people can do that though? Because I feel like that's like, I think that's like, in theory, that's like everyone should do that, right? It's like, oh well, if you're maybe not smart and identify as a smart person and do things that smart people would do, right? But it's like I think like for an average person to do that though, it's got to be like what like you know what I mean? It's, for example, it's like you, right? So let's say you said I identify as, I don't know, like a genius, right? It's like the odds of you actually going like, I feel like it's one of those things where it's hard to actually do though for a lot of people, especially when they're in like the negative space, right? Like if you're that 400-pound person, for you to have enough self-awareness as we're talking about and self-love to be like, all right, I'm a fit person now. Like, do you think that it's hard for them to actually like believe that though? You know what I mean? Like that's how it's tough.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong, but you're also not correct in my mind.
Yeah.
So yes.
How does someone like have the confidence in themselves to think that they're that?
So that's the thing, right? It's not about confidence.
Okay.
Most change starts because of the awareness that you are not yet the thing you want to be. It's okay. I like that you said that. How do you have the confidence? Don't have the confidence. If you have the confidence, most likely you're not going to do it. What those people that are confident that they're 400 pounds, like the whole push for the fat movement nowadays.
Yeah.
Those people don't want to change because they're confident in their skin. They shouldn't be. They're going to have millions of health issues down the road.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Ultimately, change is usually spurred by the fact that we're aware we are lacking something. Like, I love it. Okay, I identify as a genius.
Yeah.
Guess what? You identify as that, you're most likely not going to believe it. Great. You shouldn't, because you're not. You're still an idiot.
Yeah.
So if you're still an idiot, what must you do to become a genius? What are the actions you could take? Where can you get information? What should you get information in? Why should you get information in that specific topic? What will come about this? How can you actually go ahead and, once you're a genius, do something with that? How can you make a difference in the world now? Why would you becoming a genius in that specific topic help the world, help this, help that, help who, help you? You start getting questions that you can answer.
Yeah.
And if you start getting really good questions that you can answer, quality questions, right? Because there's other questions too.
Yeah.
But if you start getting quality questions you can answer, it'll start giving you a quality roadmap to follow that will evolve you as a person. Because most people think the point of the goal is about the goal. Like, oh, I need to achieve the goal. Yeah, but no. In trying to achieve the goal, like the point of a goal is actually about the pursuit of it. It's about the evolution of who you must become to achieve and
goal,
live
yes,
out.
I agree.
Live out the goal.
Yeah.
So what that means is that everything you're chasing is a challenge of evolution. So you shouldn't feel competent in something, because if you do, that means you don't have to evolve to get there. You're already it.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say is like, you don't need to have the confidence. In fact, you won't, because confidence is, there's a formula for confidence that I cracked and figured out. It's this, IEI.
Okay.
So it's an acronym.
Yeah.
Internal, external, internal. And why that's the confidence formula is this. You need to start with an internal belief. And notice the word I'm using real quick, belief. You have this internal belief that you are and can be something. But confidence, and this is what's wrong with today's world with the participation trophy mindset, confidence actually needs to have an external validation.
I agree with that. Yes.
You can't validate a belief without external sources agreeing upon it. So I always like to use this example. If you sing in the shower, you love singing in the shower, and you're like, damn, I am such a good singer. My voice, like velvet and peanut butter, that's how smooth it is.
Yeah.
But you don't go out and you don't actually sing in front of other people, you'll never actually know if you're a good singer.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter if you think you're a good singer. What about getting approval from others? Like statistically checking.
Yeah.
So now you go out, everybody says you're an amazing singer. Please come back, sing another song next week. Now you're starting to build external validation. Once you have enough external validation, there's a threshold. For everybody, it could be different. But once you have enough external validation, you can actually take the belief and turn it into a knowing. And a belief and a knowing are two very different things. So the internal belief gets an external validation, and then it goes to a internal knowing, and the internal knowing becomes a core of your belief system. The belief system shapes how you interact with this world. Now, what you start doing is you build the confidence cycle, because that comes off of this. Once you have the internal validation and the knowing, you go into confidence builds competency. Competency builds capability. Capability builds confidence. Confidence, and it goes into that cycle. Yeah. And now you have the confidence cycle.
Yeah. No, I think real confidence comes from like achievement or competence. Like, you're not gonna think you're like, you can say you're a good looking guy, but if you don't get any girls, then you're not a good looking guy. You can say you're the smartest kid in your class, but if you don't get good grades in your class, you're not the smartest kid in your class, right? Yeah. It's like, I agree with you. I think, and again, like, you can be false confident, and people can see through that. But you can tell when someone's really confident by, like, for example, it's the whole, if you're what's like the word? There's like a thing where it's like the quietest person in the room is like the most confident, because they have no need to show anyone what they're doing or what they're saying, because inherently they know to themselves that they are what they are. Yeah. So I agree with you. I think there's external completely matters when it comes to confidence. I agree with that.
Of course, you can't validate something for yourself.
Yeah.
It's just not. Yeah. But you brought up a great example, and I think that's so powerful for people to really like sink their teeth into that. It's like, if you identify as confident or rich or whatever you identify as, it doesn't matter. Yeah. It's what can you actually show?
Is it true or not?
Yeah, and what could be validated?
Yeah.
I could say I'm the smartest, but if you've seen that I'm failing my class, you would have zero evidence to believe that I'm intelligent.
Yeah.
So I love that you brought that up. Thanks for the viewers. The viewers, you need to thank him for that.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of want to get into my last question for you now, because it's crazy. We've been talking for almost 2 hours now.
Have we?
Fun fact. Wow. Okay. My last question is really, again, that final piece of advice someone could take home is, what is one thing that everyone who is between 19 and 24 can do right now, whether it's over the course of a day, a week, or a month, that can really change their life and give them a better future than they had before they did it?
Okay, so we're going back to the or concept, and I'm going to pair that with something real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
This is what started my journey.
Yeah.
And this is what will jumpstart anybody's journey, so long as they actually do it.
Yeah.
So if we think about the ownership, accountability, acceptance, and responsibility, and you start taking that responsibility piece, and you're saying, okay, so like when I said, I want to be a leader, I want to be inspiring, I want to be happy. Each one of those has a criteria, right? Like, we could sit here, you and I could have conversations about what a leader is, what a leader should do, how they should respond to others, how do they listen to others, how do they make others feel, right? There's a whole freaking list. So I do these two things. I'm going to mesh them for everyone, because this will be important. You have internal leadership, and you have the 5 aspects of mastery. So these are like the core thesis of my concepts that I teach. This is what people pay me for, so listen. This is the sauce.
Yeah.
The internal leadership is this. We all have multiple identities within us. So for me, I'm a father, I'm a son, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a husband. I have these different titles, right?
Yeah.
Each title has a highest functioning version and a lowest functioning version. So I always tell people, like, write these out and then journal on what all of these aspects are. So we'll take father, for example, because that's my favorite title. So the highest version of a father is someone who's present in the home, who actually leads his family. He's somebody that intentionally spends time with his child. He's somebody that listens. He's a teacher. He's a guide, right? Like, these are all different attributes too. Yeah. And then you could break that down even further.
Yeah.
What does it look like to listen as a father? Well, I'll let my daughter tell me everything that's on her mind. She's 2.5 right now. So a lot of the things that are on her mind don't fully make sense, but that's okay.
Like,
I'm going to listen.
Yeah.
Oh, no, she'll say other things. She'll list out. She says, I need to go downstairs. I need to go find my Play-Doh. I need to cut paper. I'm like, I don't even know. Is this the order? Why do you need to cut paper and play with Play-Doh? Doesn't matter. As a father, I believe highest version of a father is someone who will listen to his child. So I go into all of that, right? This is the first assignment for everyone listening. Okay, so I'm just going to recap it. But you list out all of your identities. From there, you list out what the best and worst versions of those are. For instance, I didn't go into the worst version, but I'll give one quick example. Like a crappy version of a father would be the guy that's sitting there on his phone while his kid's trying to get his attention. And he's like, and he's like not giving a crap. And he's like scrolling and he's like, yeah, that's a great drawing. Oh, wow. Yeah, I love what you made with Play-Doh. Like, dude, you suck. You're a horrible father. So that's the version of a bad father. Now, once you know what the empowered versions look like and the less empowered versions look like, you start really intentionalizing and being present on what the empowered version looks like. And mind you, because we're talking about young people too, you could ask, what's the best version of a student look like for you?
Yeah.
Right? Your identity might be a worker. What does it look like to be a worker or an aspiring entrepreneur? Whatever the identity.
Yeah.
So get that clear. And then lastly, to really take powerful steps forward is you look at the 5 aspects of mastery. Because there's nothing that you can control in this world that exists outside of you. Outside of you, you could try to influence.
Yeah.
But your level and capability to influence comes back to how grounded you are on the inside.
Okay.
So these 5 aspects are all internal. So they are your thoughts, your language, your behaviors, your actions, and your emotions. If you can control at least one of these in any given situation, you could start finding the other 4. And so I always challenge people, find these 4 things, because also if you pair these with the identities, you could see how to really build those empowered personas, right? So I'll give a quick definition on all of these and then we'll probably wind up wrapping. But essentially, for your language, it's how you describe things. What you say really, really matters. You have to be intentional because language is going to shift and be a self-feeding system for your subconscious mind.
Yeah.
Your subconscious pays attention to everything and makes sense of things. You know how it could easily make sense of things? Because you describe things. And whenever you say something, you're describing it.
Yeah.
This is a great podcast.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I've also just implanted it into my subconscious, right?
Yes.
So this is a great podcast. But the more you say something, the more it starts to be fed, the more that self-feeding system continues to go. And then your language starts feeding into your thoughts. And your thoughts, well, your thoughts are pretty self-explanatory, but they're focused. Here's a question for you.
Okay.
Is focus narrowing things down or expanding them out?
I would say focus to me is narrowing things.
That's what most people think.
Yeah.
And you're half right.
Okay.
Because that's the first part.
Yeah.
A focus is a narrowing, but what happens when you narrow is it expands. Because once you really get super clear on something, all you see is that thing.
Yes.
And if all you see is that thing, what does that mean? Expands. It's fully taking over. So when you're choosing thoughts, what you're actually choosing is your focus. And depending on how much thought you're having on a specific thing, it's either completely taking over your life or you're barely giving it any attention at all.
Yeah, facts.
So choosing focus is important. That's your thoughts. We just did language. Your emotions. Emotion, I've come to find, is energy and motion. It's physiology too. It's not just something that we feel. And by the way, a feeling, is it what you are or is it an experience? It's an experience. We experience feelings. You're not living in a state of anxiety or sadness forever.
Yep, you're not.
You have moments.
Yes.
But a moment, if it
You
could
can
go
feel
away,
anything, but that's just how you are in this. You can't always be like tired or happy or angry. You can't always be that all the course of the entire existence of everything. Yeah, that's
right.
facts.
So if it's an experience, can't you choose experiences that you have?
Yeah.
Right. Like you could choose and say if you want to go on a roller coaster or not, right?
Yeah.
So why do we think we can't choose our emotion? That's silly.
Good point. Yeah, I agree.
It's an experience.
Yeah.
So if you're choosing your experiences, aka your emotions, well, one thing is to be aware of how they manifest. Physiology has a lot to do with our emotions. We get into states. So now we're talking state management, which is a whole nother topic we're not going to go into. But
Part 2 in a year, guys.
Part 2. This is a great time. I'll be back. I love being in person. But essentially, your state is managed, and it has these physical manifestations. So if you and I were to take a trip to another country or multiple countries, and I ask you, show me someone who's happy, show me someone who's depressed, Why would you be able to point those people out to me?
Because you can kind of see it.
Of course, you could see it. So if you could see it, means we can embody it, right? Because people can embody their emotions.
Yeah, if we know what happy looks like, then we should try to create that look for ourselves.
Create it, experience it, shift it. And a big part of doing that is being able to utilize physiological changes. Change the tone in your voice. Change your facial expressions. Change your smile. Change how you're sitting. Change how you're breathing. Change how your shoulders are statured or postured. Yeah, dude, there are so many things you could do to shift your physiology. Like if you're angry, here's a trick for somebody. Next time you get angry, before you go into your anger cycle, again, another thing we could dive into part 2. But
we need part 2, part 3, part 4.
Whole mini series.
Actually, though.
But before you go into an anger cycle, smile and say, I'm curious about that. Because so many reasons that we get angry is because of the certainty we have in our mind as to why we should be angry, as opposed to why shouldn't we be angry? In fact, can you tell me why you think that way or why you just did that?
Yeah.
And if you do that, it's a pattern interrupt. It's your state interruption and it shifts your emotion.
Yeah.
And so pattern interrupts are the key to transforming your emotional feelings. But
you can stop them. It's like stopping them in real time.
yes. And the reason we call it a pattern interrupt is because of the fact that what it is it's typically a pattern. Your emotions, though they're experiences, they're something that you've already had before. Like the science and the research shows 95% of everything we do, say, think, feel, and experience are all processes from the day before, the week before, the month before, the year before. Like we've already been experiencing most things in our day.
Yeah.
Every day.
Everyday facts, yeah.
And so same thing goes for anger and sadness and all that. So when you do a pattern or state interrupt, you're actually stopping that subconscious process and you're regaining control, which means now you get to choose
how to feel, how to be. Yeah.
Your experience. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's how you shift emotions. Okay. So we did language, thoughts, emotion. The last 2 are actions and behaviors. Most people think they're the same, but they're not. They're very, very different for specific reasons. I'll go into actions because they're very easy.
Yeah.
Actions are things that we perceive as valuable moment to moment. So when you say somebody's acting out of character, you'd most likely be right if you know their character well enough.
Yeah.
And then we say, well, why did they act out of character? Well, here's the thing. Whatever's going on in their world, whatever the experiences they're having, whatever their emotions or language or thoughts are, whatever whirlwinds going on in their life and their mind, this specific action that just came up that they chose that took them out of their current, character, they did that because in that specific moment, they found whatever they did to be more valuable than consistently being who they believe themselves to be. Now, a very simple example of an action is something we don't do day to day often. It's not like a pattern or a habit. It's just something we choose. Like a car is coming barreling at you.
Move out of the way.
Yeah, you're going to jump out of the way, man.
Yeah.
Nobody would think you're a freaking weirdo for doing that because in that moment, it's obvious the most valuable decision would be to jump out of the way and save your life.
Yeah.
However, if you typically walk down the street and just randomly jump on the floor, people are going to think there's something mentally wrong with you. And they'd probably be right. That is most likely a character flaw.
Yeah.
So we see that actions don't have intrinsic, like, oh, they're good or they're bad. They just are based on what's most valuable to you in that specific moment in time that you decide. That's why being present and being mindful is so important, because if you're not, you're going to more than likely choose actions that might hurt you because you're not actually thinking them through. You're not actually saying, how would this be valuable to my end goal? What is the thing I'm about to do right now? How's that going to impact me? See, most people don't ask those questions. And if they did, oh man, would their lives be better?
Yeah.
If you pause.
Seriously, I agree with you.
Right? Challenge to everyone listening. For the next, I'll do it for a day. Challenge to everyone listening for one day.
Yeah.
Before you do anything, ask if this is going to help you get closer to the person you want to become or pull you further away from that. And watch how that day is one of the best days of your life and you don't have depression, anxiety, or anything.
Yeah. Seriously.
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
And then go do the thing, of course. Don't just contemplate. Don't just contemplate. You have to do it.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's true, though. That's real. Right. That's true.
People don't think.
Yeah.
And so the last part is behaviors.
A lot of it's autopilot, too, I think. A lot of people just live on autopilot based on how they are. They don't. That's why I agree with you.
Right. Well, the 95%'s that.
Yeah.
That's the autopilot.
Yeah.
And that's the average, by the way.
Yeah.
Most people, I would argue, probably more subconscious than that, especially with technology.
Definitely.
So To that point, though, now it brings us literally to the last one, which is behavior.
Behaviors, yeah.
So behavior is your attitude towards life. But that is deeply, deeply, deeply embedded and tied to your identity. So behaviors form our habits and our patterns because it's really how we view the world. But the fun part is that we don't see the world as it is, we see it as we are. So if you see the world as you are, that means that everything, your attitude towards life, is actually just you superimposing your beliefs, whatever meaning or expectations you hold, and that's how you interact with the world. If I think people intrinsically suck and I don't trust them, I will have more of a pulled back, maybe dismissive, less trustworthy view of you, and I will respond in kind. You didn't do anything to me. That's just what I believe. So those behaviors are some of the deeper perpetuating patterns of our lives. And to really shift that, it kind of comes back to the other thing I said before is like, who do you want to be? Even if you're that 400-pound person, do you believe, do you have this desire? Do you want to be skinny? What does that look like? How will you feel? How will you embody that? Hold that identity and then interact with the world like that. And those are the 5 aspects of mastery. Pair those with your identities from
Best
internal leadership.
Yeah.
And now those 5 things are the things you could always control in every situation, which will help you step into the empowered versions of yourself.
And you'll always be actively making progress to where you want to go all the time.
Exactly.
Let's go, man. That's real. That's
Every
real
day.
advice. That's not just, hey guys, you should think about you should journal every day. Like that's like.
And how does that make you feel?
No, wow. Well, I have something for you now as a thank you for that. What size T-shirt do you wear?
Oh man, depends if I'm fat or skinny that week, but
What do you prefer? Medium, large, extra large?
Typically, I wear a large.
Do you like black or white?
Oh, it's always black, man.
Yeah,
always black.
Well, toss that. Thank you. These are actually our 5th guest, Carly Stillwagon. She's also my age. She dropped out of school. She went to Rutgers to launch her own company as well.
Nice.
She was a D1 gymnast, and she left to really kind of chase her entrepreneurial dream. So she makes a lot of amazing clothing. She does a custom printing, basically. It's called Elite Custom Apparel. And she made me these T-shirts. And I don't sell these. I don't do anything except give them to people who either are working with me in Growth Street or are now part of the Growth Street family through the podcast and other ways.
Nice.
So this is just my way of saying thank you. I know it's not the crazy thing, but these are really high quality. I'm sure you could feel it when you have it. When you go to the
Love
gym,
it.
my brother right here wears it to the gym every day. I be seeing everyone who's here. They'll post on their stories wearing it. Like one of them is a basketball trainer. He was coaching an NBA player, and he's wearing the freaking Growth. And he even said it to me. I was like, what the heck? So this is from me to you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, my friend.
Just so you
Love
can
it.
always...
Oh, that is
Yeah,
nice. You know, actually, this is very timely because I've been wanting to wear more clothing with my own personal brand on it. And I'm like, I don't know where to go to get
I'll
some
send
of
you
them
all
printed.
her... I literally send you all her information.
Yes. That's
She's
awesome.
the GOAT. She's the best.
This is, first up, this is like the comfiest shirt I felt in a long time.
Yeah, it's soft.
So, yes, I
Yeah.
will.
There you
I'll
go.
probably go get some shirts.
But seriously, I just want to say thank you because I'm someone who I know I'm a deep thinker. I love to think deeply. Sometimes to my own detriment, I overthink things sometimes. But I love understanding the way the world works a little bit deeper because I'm someone who maybe it's this a conference we can go again. We'll figure all that later. But I really do think I have a good understanding of why things are the way they are, why this world is the way it is, which is why I love like science fiction shows and fantasy shows because like I feel like I already understand this world.
Yeah.
So when I have someone who's a little bit more like has an even deeper understanding of people and people's what the whole world's about, I'm so fascinated by it because again I tell people so much advice and I help show them light from other guests we've had about more tangible things that can be done physically, but no one really talks about this mentally, and mental health has a stigma of this depression, anxiety, XYZ. But you have shifted it into more of an empowering, this is what it actually is. Like, to focus on being present, like what building real confidence is and things like that. And I personally like to hook my wagon to those kind of ideals a lot. So I didn't even know this is how you really thought before we got here. We talked on the phone a little bit, but I'm proud to have had you come here and really share everything. Really, I really do appreciate it. It means a lot.
Thanks, man. Yeah, this is a great time.
Yeah.
Anybody who wants to be on should definitely ask because this is a great time and it's a beautiful, beautiful space. Thanks.
We
thanks
got
for
in our
putting it
space.
together.
Yeah, man.
And that even says mindset right there. So that's great.
Thoughts become reality.
Yeah, match effort with ambition. See, look, You guys don't even need my advice. You just listen to Monopoly pieces right here. You got
that's
it.
That's more me. This is more you. But yeah, I mean, this is your last moment. If you have any shout outs, anything you want to say, this is your chance to anything you want. The last things you want to say. Man.
I love it. Well, if your audience would like, I have a free resource. You guys can grab it. It's on my website. I'm not selling
What's the
anything.
website?
Yeah, the website's www.vincentinfante.life. It's my name. If you have trouble with that, honestly, just Google me. I'm not trying to sound pretentious, but you could Google my name. Not a lot of people have my name, so you'll find it.
Net worth.
Yeah, you'll find it. I rank very high on the SEO because nobody has my name apparently, but which is good for me. So you go to the website. There's a free resource there. I'd love for everybody to grab it. I'm not selling you anything. I'm not going to sell you anything. Feel free to opt out of my mail list. I don't care.
Yeah.
But it's something I worked hard on, and I think everybody would really like it because I try to pair this with everything we do in life when we talk about being present and mindful. And the resource I created is called a mission board. It's like a vision board, but it's better. It's better because of one, I made it. And number two, because of the fact that it's a lot more intentional. How many times do you see these vision boards and it's always like a white blonde girl in Bali who's just putting flowers on it? Like, I hate that. And it never made sense to me. But again, I am a big fan and believer in manifestation. Yeah. But I believe there is science to it. And the science is that you have to be super intentional and you have to take clear, proper direction and action. And if you remember what I said before, is like, it's not about just walking the path. It's about knowing your end goal and the path you should walk because you know where you want to end up. So when I give out this mission board template, it's like 10 pages, very small, big font, some pictures, don't worry. But when you go through this, it's about getting you set up, like creating your mission, vision, and value statements for yourself as a person, because companies have them, but we don't typically have individual ones. So I challenge you to make your individual one. Put it up. If you have a company and you are an entrepreneur, put it up next to your entrepreneur mission, vision, and value statements. See how you and your company align. And then, of course, put up the photos and get really clear on what you're aiming towards. What are your end goals? Like, and one of my favorite things that I put on there, which I love to study, is quotes. So on your mission board, you should have a few quotes. And I've used quotes to change the way I look at the world. In fact, this is the last thing I'll say, but one of the biggest quotes that helped me change my life was a quote by Marcus Aurelius. Okay. And he said, be tolerant of others and strict with yourself. And why that helped me is because as somebody who's a relatively high performer myself, I have I clean the gym because it's my gym, right? Not everybody likes to live that way. Yeah. And so part of the things that made my relationships hard was I have very high expectations and I used to put them on others. And as silly as it is, it took a ancient Roman emperor who was also a famous Stoic to start changing my mindset, because sometimes we need to keep rereading things until it hits, because maybe you're not the person that's ready to absorb that. Yeah. And so that's why on the mission board, I say, like, put up a quote, read it every single day until you memorize it. And then even after you memorize it, every single day until you actually embody it, because you never know when that piece of wisdom will strike, but change will occur. You'll embrace it. And then boom, your life's changed for the better. Yeah. So those are just a few components, but please get that.
I'm going to do it myself, man, probably this week. But yeah, guys, everyone go drop a follow on his LinkedIn. Are you active on other social media as well?
You guys can find me on socials. I keep it shorter on my socials. It's just Vin Infante. You find me on Instagram. It's vin.infante. LinkedIn's Vin Infante. TikTok I barely use, but it's there too. Yeah. But yeah, you could check me out anywhere.
Yeah, everyone go show him some love. And if you are an entrepreneur, or if you are C-suite, or if you are wanting that, executive level coaching, he's the man to take you there. So I really appreciate it. Again, I think we had a lot of good value. And if you guys really enjoyed and liked this episode, like, comment, share it with someone else who would benefit from this that you thought of while we were talking about these stories. And yeah, I hope you guys all have a great day. You as well, man. I really appreciate it.
Subscribe to his channel. He didn't say it, but do it.
Thank you.
And yes, thanks for having me, man. Have a great day yourself.
Yeah, there you go. And that's a wrap. Done. There you go, man.
All right.
How you feel?
Yeah, good time.
That was good, right? That was awesome, man.